start the recording for the meeting. And then if others join us or trickle in, we'll certainly just add them as they go along. First, I want to say welcome. Thank you. Super excited to be starting this process again with this group. It's something that we look forward to all the time. It's I appreciate the discussion and this group and the input. A great way to celebrate the work that we've done and also kind of plan for what's next upcoming. So no attendees still. Let's see. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and, even though this group is fairly familiar, I'd like to go ahead and just go through introductions, and we'll start with the SRP members first, and then we'll go through city staff. So first, let's do Gary, then John.
Gary Wildish, retired.
John Quilter, also retired, been on the committee, I think about 3 or 4 years now.
Then let's do Matt and Sue.
Matt Roberts. I'm trying to get my earbuds to work, but I'm with the U of O, and I've been on the committee now, I don't know, 3 terms, 2 terms, I don't know, for a while. And I still haven't gotten my street repaired yet, but this is my year.
I'm Sue Walling, retired this year, just in the nick of time, and just elected co-chair of the Active Transportation Committee. And the streets near my place are pretty awful too.
Okay,
they're on the list too.
Okay, let's do Ollie, then Janine, then Alan.
Okay, Ollie Snowden, retired from Lane County quite a while ago.
Hi, I'm Janine Parisi. I am not retired. I work for eWeb and will be for the foreseeable future. Street is just fine. If you want your street repaired, you could just have a water main break and then, we'll tear it up and then fix it later. I don't know. It's an option. This is my second time on the committee, so I kind of a little bit know what I'm doing, but not that great. So following along still.
Hi, I'm Alan Hancock. I recognize most of you. I've been on the committee, I think, for 3 or 4 years now. I am a property manager of sorts, and I have been involved with the Active Transportation Committee for at least 10 years.
Okay, I see Rachel has joined us, which is just great. Let's start. Now we'll go through city staff. Let's do the same. Let's go Kathy, Jamie, Rachel.
I'm Kathy, and I work at Public Works Administration.
I'm Jamie, and I work with Kathy at Public Works Administration.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I don't have a video thing, so I'm still sorry I'm late. I'm having some technical issues, but I'm Rachel Love. I'm a project manager and the pavement preservation program manager.
Okay, let's do Eric and Brian next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Johnson with the maintenance division. I'm the operations manager, and I've been on the committee since our first bond.
And I am Brian Richardson, started with the city in 2016, so I've been working on this SRP since then, and help on the communication side of things.
That's great, thank you. And then Jennifer, we'll leave you for last.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Wooler. I am still the acting city engineer for the city of Eugene. And just to kind of share a little bit of a staff change that's happened at the city, I do want to welcome Jamie Garner to the SRP work. You probably all remember Tammy Smith, who had represented the financial side of the city in the bond measure for many years. She actually moved to Eugene Springfield Fire and is working for them now. And so Jamie has come to us from I think your most recent assignment was with ISD. So we expect that you are not, which is our IT division at the city of Eugene. So Jamie will not have any technical difficulties in any of these meetings because, she's a pro at it now. And So I don't know, is there anybody else left to introduce? I guess you, Katie, right?
Well, I guess, yeah, Katie Marwitz. I've been with the city for a while. Been involved with this process for a number of years. And I will say, before I turn it back over to you, Jennifer, that we are missing one member today. John Borowski isn't able to attend the meeting today. And also we have a vacancy, 1 to 2 vacancies that we're working on filling, and have a potential person who's very excited to join us. So if that continues forward, she will join us for our next January meeting. Jennifer, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, so I just have some short remarks to make. You'll notice Matt Rodriguez can't be with us today, and typically these kind of welcoming remarks would be done by our Public Works Director. So I'm going to do that for him today. And really, for those of you who are back again another year, you probably are kind of familiar with this, but at the same time, I can't say thank you enough for you being part of the Street Repair Review Panel. The SRP really began its charge, I think, officially in 2009 with the very first street repair bond. And this group has really been instrumental in advising staff, council, and honestly, your neighbors about the work that we do around streets and transportation here at the city of Eugene. And so I just have so much appreciation for your volunteerism and being part of this program and the report that we do to city council each year. Your work has been really critical, I think, to the success of this program, and I think critical to the trust and the confidence that we've built with the community over how we spend our dollars in transportation. So just a really huge thank you and appreciation to all of you to signing up for doing this work another year. So thank you.
And Jim, welcome. It's nice to see you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If Jim, your time to talk, you were muted. Okay. Okay, can you see that?
Katie, I'll
Yes.
keep an eye on the attendees list, and I can promote anybody who might join us later.
Okay, that's great. Okay, can you see my screen? Let's see. Share.
No.
There we go.
Now I can.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll get it. It's only been 2 years of trying to figure out online meetings. So the first thing I want to do is just review our agenda. It's pretty standard and pretty similar to what we've done in years past, but I still think it's important to know where we're going and what our expectations are for this meeting. So I want to review the agenda. The next piece after that is we will talk about selecting a facilitator, talk a little bit about the work of the SRP. Rachel's going to give us a virtual project tour, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's upcoming. So some meeting logistics. Does anybody have questions about the technical pieces of Zoom? I think it's great if we raise hands, if somebody has a comment. I would prefer that over the chat, just so that we can make sure that everybody's aware and can participate and be aware of the conversations ongoing. But certainly if there's something that you want to put into the chat, we'll try to keep an eye on that as well. I just want to make sure that we're all as much as possible present here for this discussion. So our next piece, unless anybody has any specific questions or things to add or edit on the agenda, is I'd like to talk about facilitator. John Quilter has done a great job being our facilitator for the last 2 years. And now it's time to select a new lucky representative who gets to take on that role for this next year. Is there volunteers?
It's not really that hard, so anybody could do it.
I'm happy to do it if nobody else is interested. I facilitate my fair share of virtual meetings, so if you don't mind bad jokes and a little clunkiness on my part, I'm probably the facilitator for you.
I move that Janine becomes our facilitator.
I second that.
How'd I know that my
All in
buddy was
favor.
gonna do that?
Hey, well then, so moved, right? Alan and Jim, are you guys voting for Janine, or you want to make a comment or nominate yourself?
No, I was voting. I was raising my hand to vote.
Okay, well, that's just great. Thank you. So Janine, you are now our facilitator. You and I can check in offline if you'd like to talk a little bit more about it. And typically you and I will do some check-in before the next meeting, just so that we're on the same page about what's next upcoming.
Fair enough.
So next, moving on to a little bit of background about the SRP, which again, with this great group with experience, I don't want to feel like we're repeating, but it's still important. You know, talking about the mission that's there on the bottom of the screen, that's the same as when we started this process. So the Street Repair Review Panel will prepare an annual report, separate and distinct from the report prepared by the outside auditor, documenting the city's use of the bond's proceeds and noting whether the bond proceeds were used in compliance with the terms of the resolution. So really, that's our charge. That's where we start. And our intention is to have the same 3 meetings this year to go through that similarly to the last several years. Does anybody have any questions about that, kind of that background piece before we turn it over to Rachel for the project tour?
So Katie, it turns out that I do not have the ability to promote people, and Rachel is back in the attendee box and not a panelist right now.
Okay. Yeah, she, when I tried before, I get an error that says that she's that I can't promote her. It says failed to change row to panelist. So go ahead, Rachel.
I was saying I keep selecting it and for some reason it's not working. But
Okay, Rachel, can you still see the screen though?
yeah, I can see all of you just fine.
Okay. So I would propose that maybe I click on the link and I can bring up the road tour piece, because without
Okay.
being a panelist, I would guess that you're not able to share screen.
I am not. That's what I was
Okay.
going to ask if you could pull it up for me.
I'd be happy to. So I'll just need just a minute. Janine, now's the time for one of those bad jokes while we're working through technology.
I was thinking this might be Jamie's first opportunity to show her stuff.
That's intimidating. But thanks for the confidence.
What's the possibility, if anything, of going back to meeting in person, which doesn't seem quite so clunky as doing this on the computer screens?
Yeah, that's a good question, John. And I know that you had expressed that in an email, and I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. So Jennifer can probably speak to it more. I think when we were looking at the timing of this, we wanted to make sure that everybody's safe. Different people have a different level of comfort. And then there's also, we have some challenges with our office is not open to the public currently. So this is the kind of the safer route and I think that we might have room for adjustments, but wanted to say, hey, this is the format we're doing because it's consistent with what we're doing in other parts of our work as well. Jennifer, do you want to add something to that that's less clunky?
Just to add on about our offices. So as you know, Public Works Engineering leases space from Wells Fargo. We're in the Wells Fargo Bank building, and that building, Wells Fargo has closed it to the public. And so us opening our office, people still can't get to our office since the building itself is still locked down. So that's really part of the clunkiness of us having in-person meetings, as well as the city in general is not having in-person meetings with public groups at this time yet either, as far as I know. I think I've heard something that council is looking at maybe going to some in-person events after the new year, but I don't have that for sure. But I'm hoping that we're going to start transitioning, because we do have some spaces in our building that are larger meeting rooms and things like that where we could potentially stay safe. But I think we're still working on kind of what that looks like going forward, because there are some rules about, being masked indoors and things like that, that we're still not sure about people and their comfort levels right now.
Sue, did you have a
Just
comment or
space
question?
Consideration, we do have that big meeting room we used to meet in out at the Roosevelt Public Works headquarters. And that was a pretty large room with a large table area. So we would be all pretty socially distanced.
Thanks for that, John. We're continuing to monitor and continuing to try to be flexible as we try to navigate our way through this. Sue, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering, as long as we had a few minutes, which I don't know if we do anymore. You said there's an opening or two on the panel. I was just wondering how those get filled. What's the selection process? What's the criteria, that kind of thing?
That's a great question. So I will answer what I can, and then Brian can help me after I stumble. So last year when we had an opening, what we did is we posted the opening. We made an open call to the community through social media and the city website, telling about the opportunity and what the general outline of the work that we do is, to see if there's community members interested. We received one interested party, and he joined us last year for our meetings. That person has decided that they want to continue to be retired this year, and so that position is now open again. So Brian and I have worked together to similarly reach out to the community, this time doing a little bit more focused outreach for some specific groups that, you know, maybe aren't represented in the makeup of our current group. So trying to spread that net a little wider and a little bit different than last year. And that's where we are right now. And if we need to adjust, we'll continue to adjust that. Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, that's pretty spot on. It's really just also making sure that, Sue, that we're working with our HR&I office, the Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement Group as well, just to see if we can, you know, broaden kind of our outreach and make sure that we're hitting as many different potential groups and finding those candidates.
And here's where I could insert a joke about, you know, I can't believe that people aren't just knocking down our doors to talk about pavement and transportation, because it really is really great and really cool. But yes, we want to find good members, people who are interested, who have, you know, kind of the passion around making improvements in the community and working in this group. So we're still working on it, Sue, and we've really been lucky that this group has been so solid for so long, right? There's a lot of good background and knowledge and experience in this group. So we want to make sure that we're making the right decisions as we continue to add people to it. So we're excited at what those potential people are, or who they are, and what they bring to the table. So
Katie,
Rachel, oh yeah, go ahead.
Katie, didn't you say that you do have at least one new member that will be starting in January?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I have some follow-up conversations to have with that person, but she will join us after the first of the year. Okay, so Rachel, I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share my screen now. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so last year we weren't able to do our in-person road tour. So a big thank you to Brian Richardson for helping us put together this story map so we can do a virtual road tour this year. So this will just be a review of our 2021 projects, and then we'll highlight a few of the upcoming 22 projects. Okay, you can go ahead and scroll down. So this map shows the yellow highlighted streets are all of the projects we did in 2021, which was a pretty big construction year for us. And the 22 projects are highlighted in red, which is going to be another big construction season. So this year we had about 19 total projects, and next year I think we have 26 streets that will be in construction. So as we go through this story map, you'll see like in the upper left-hand corner, eventually there'll be like a little map and it'll kind of like zoom into each location as we go through each project. But before we do that, if you scroll down, Katie, we'll go through just some of the stats that we had this year. So we had 19 total projects, and that included projects that utilize the bike and pedestrian activation, or active transportation funds. So we had 15 streets that were in construction, and then Looks like about 4 projects that utilize the bike ped funds. Including all those projects, we added 19 pedestrian crosswalks throughout the city and over 17,000 tons of new asphalt and rebuilt over 260 ADA ramps. So that's pretty awesome. So starting off, we're going to have 14 stops on this virtual road tour, and we're going to start off with a couple of projects that utilize the bike ped funds. So starting off with number 1, we have the West Bank Path. If you scroll down just a little bit, Katie, there we go. West Bank Path project, this was earlier in the season. This project repaved the West Bank Path in an existing location. This is on the Ruth Bascom River Path from Copping Street up to Stoltz-Stevens Drive. We also utilize the park bond on this project to add habitat sensitive and energy efficient lighting. It also added lighting between Copping Street and Maury Jacobs Park. And then Katie, if you click the arrows to the right, you'll see a couple of pictures. So these are all the finished pictures of the project. I think it turned out really great. I've heard really good reviews. We also did improvements to the path entrances and slopes. So, and then the next stop, we have the South Bank Path. This path project also had a federal grant, and then we used the bike ped funds as a local match. This completely rebuilt the South Bank Path portion between 8th and Hilliard access point next to the riverfront path down to the Frommeyer pedestrian bridge that goes over to Autzen Stadium. So we realigned the path away from the failing bank and reconstructed a new 12-foot wide concrete path. And then we rebuilt the existing asphalt path into a gravel walking and running path. So you still have access along the river. And this is on U of O property. So we added U of O specific lights that they'll be maintaining. The city has an easement through their property for this path. And so I'm happy to say that the path is now reopened to the public. And since these pictures were taken, the lights have been fully constructed and are now energized. And it's really been, I checked it out a couple of weeks ago at night, and it's a really big improvement to the area. It looks really great. The riverfront path is still closed, so we are still encouraging folks to use the North Bank path for through traffic, but you can at least ride down to the 8th Avenue access point. And if you have any questions about these projects, please speak up while we go through, or we can wait till the end. And then another big project that utilized the bike ped funds was a Northeast Livable Streets project. This was also a grant funded project, and this included 9 crossings in Northeast Eugene. So these were just updating major crossings to improve connectivity for pedestrians. Some of the crossing design elements that included upgrading sidewalk access ramps, building new pedestrian islands, and adding crosswalks, and adding new striping and signage, and in some locations, adding pedestrian flashing beacons. And I think this is a good example of the pedestrian island crossings. And here you can see that there's flashing beacons to let you know when people are crossing. Right, so then starting off with just our pavement projects, we'll start out in West Eugene. This project included 4 streets, and Erasmus Street is an industrial street, and this mostly just included paving. We did do a few stormwater improvements, but this was a mill and fill street. And we had, the community of these next 4 projects, we got really good feedback. This area hasn't seen a lot of work for a while. Bailey Hill Road is between 5th Avenue and 11th Avenue. And this street segment, we were able to do a few things. We did some storm improvements, and we also included some additional striping for bike lane buffer lanes, because this street is extremely wide. And so we tried to give it a little bit of a road diet and add some additional safety features. We also, on this picture, you can see we go back one, Katie.
Sorry.
We built a bike ramp at this corner at 7th and Bailey Hill. Just gives bikes some vertical separation, because it's a little dangerous going around the corner, especially when you have big truck traffic. Another thing that we were able to do is there's a center lane on this project, on this street, that has like long sections between driveways that doesn't really get utilized. So one of the things we decided to do is we built two median islands that have now been planted with trees. So we're helped us work towards our tree canopy goal for the city too, especially on a street that wouldn't normally get any street trees. Yeah, so I think everyone seemed really happy on the street with this improvement. This picture is just looking south of West 11th, and you can see the new pavement across the intersection. And Roosevelt Boulevard, we repaved a section of this street from the intersection with Beltline about 800 feet east. And this was primarily just we just completed paving. This also has a center lane that doesn't really go anywhere. So instead of doing our typical repaving approach, we did a slurry seal in just the center lane, as it didn't have any cracking or any need to do the typical paving approach. And then if we scroll down to Terry Street, we did this project between Royal Avenue and Roosevelt Boulevard. This also was just this was a 3-inch mill and fill project. We didn't really make that many improvements on the street. There are a number of median islands, and so we did work with Parks and Open Space to do some work for them that they provide additional funds for, so that they could do future plantings this winter. The street also had some red concrete crossings that weren't marked crosswalks, and so we were able to remove those during the paving operations and put in marked crosswalks, which was really helpful for the community, as they have a lot of kids that cross here to catch the school bus, so that seemed to really help them out. Moving on to Lincoln Street, this is a big paving project between 13th Avenue and 22nd Avenue. This project is still ongoing, but it's the only project that we have left over from this season that's still ongoing, and it plans to be finished this winter by the end of January if the weather cooperates with us. It was primarily intended to repair the pavement. It did have a mix of concrete pavement and asphalt paving. And there was long sections on the street that was missing gutter. So we did do a lot of stormwater improvements, including storm drains, and we also did some wastewater improvements too. And we also this project also included some curb extensions as well for traffic calming. The 19th Avenue and Fairmount Boulevard. This repaved 19th Avenue from Agate Street to Fairmount Boulevard, and then Fairmount Boulevard from Columbia Street to East 15th Avenue. This project is also now complete. Can you scroll down a little, Katie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this, besides paving, we also included the removal of community sewers on East 19th and Fairmount, which required the installation of approximately 1,300 feet of stormwater pipe. And then you could click through the photos of the finished product. And this also included curb extensions for traffic calming at select intersections. And this next group of streets was a local street cluster in West Eugene. Levita Lane, south of Barker Drive is one of them. And if you scroll down, we'll give us more information about the other streets that were grouped together, which include Primrose Street and Laurelhurst Drive. So Primrose Street we did from Barger Drive to Parker Place, and then Laurelhurst Drive from Barger Drive to Melrose Loop. And then Levita Lane was south of Barger Drive. And this also included a number of cul-de-sacs, which we did a slurry seal since we're in the area. And they're in similar condition as the local street itself. And then Windsor Circle, this was a street loop off of Wilshire Lane. That was mostly just a paving operation. They did some minor stormwater and wastewater improvements too. So this next project was, this is a pretty big project for this year. This is also part of the Central Eugene in Motion study, just to improve connectivity for all user types in this part of Eugene. They did a two-way conversion for Layman Street from 18th Avenue to 20th Avenue. And it also changed 20th Avenue from Willamette to Oak Street and Oak Street from 20th to 19th Avenue. And we also repaved the streets, added a new signal at 18th Avenue and Willamette Street, and did sidewalk access ramp improvements, which we did in all the projects. This also did a really big bike lane improvement too. This was kind of a funky location where it wasn't really easy just to go straight through. So this is like a really good picture of kind of the improvement they did for the bike lanes and pedestrian areas. So they combined the bike crossing and pedestrian crossing. It's a little bit different, but it seems to be working out pretty well. And then our last stop is the South Willamette Street, and we're really excited to announce that this project is substantially complete. As you may remember, this project had funds left over from the 2012 street bond. And so we're really excited to see that this project is now complete. They do have some minor work that they have to do, but it's now reopened to everybody. But this was improving the safety function and pavement condition from 23rd Avenue to 28th Avenue. So this was split up and it was like a 2-year project. So 2020 focused on utilities, sidewalks, driveways, and also built rain gardens on side streets. And then this year they focused on rehabilitating and paving the street. And then they kept the center turn lane and bike lanes from the 2016 pilot program and added widened sidewalks, pedestrian countdown timers at intersections, and pedestrian scale lighting. And you'll see the cones are sticking up through the tree grades. They'll be planting the trees this winter. So we're really excited about that project. So that's pretty much a wrap for the 2021 projects. Are there any questions before I highlight a few from 2022?
I think Janine has a question.
On the two-way conversion on Willamette Street, I just was kind of curious what kind of feedback you've gotten from bicyclists who are my experience coming down that street. It wasn't that phenomenal. I think the curb outs and the way that you kind of are weaving bikes through those curb outs versus just straight down the street when you're going downhill it's hard to navigate on a bike without slowing way down, and you've got kind of downhill momentum going for you. So, and that's without any pedestrians in the way. So for me, I didn't find it to be very user friendly. I was really excited to have that straightaway access down Willamette Street. So certainly love the ability to get on your bike and have that direct route. But as a bicyclist, I imagine most people are going to skip those little turnouts that the curb stick outs are created for bicyclists, because it's not functional in my opinion. So I was just curious if you've heard from other folks.
Jennifer or Rachel, did you want to add to that? I don't have anything specific to add, but say thank you, Janine, for your input. I know the background of the design, of the way that they were designed like that, was to help reduce the right hook conflict, thereby taking the bike out of that zone for the right hook. But I don't have any specific knowledge or feedback about that yet. But that's certainly something we could get a feel for to see if that's consistent. But thank you for that.
Yeah, we can follow up with our transportation planning staff too to see what they've heard. And I would also say that we've made adjustments in the past to projects where we've tried things maybe somewhat similar. I mean, not the same as this, but we've done some different techniques in the hope of trying to create better facilities, and they haven't quite worked out the way that we want to. And the nice thing here is that what we're talking about is something that we could adjust if we could figure out a better way to work this out. And I definitely think that Katie and Rachel and I can talk to our transportation planning staff further about these and see if they've turned out the way that they wanted them as well.
Okay, let's go Gary, then Matt.
Yes, Thank you. That was a great trip. A couple of questions I have. One was do you have an idea for those pedestrian crossings? What, those 19, what does they cost approximately per? They look pretty effective.
That's a good question. I don't have a cost off the top of my head, but we could definitely get back to you, Gary.
Well, I'm just thinking of, I'm just looking for ballpark specific cost. Or, is it $10,000, $30,000, or $250,000? But if you could, that would be great, because I have seen 2 or 3 of those installed out on River Road, and I think they're very effective, and I think they work pretty well. Another question I had was, you indicated I saw slurry seal on the Bethel Danabo on that myriad of streets, 3 or 4 streets that were done. What kind of life cycle would you expect on a slurry seal?
And Katie, do you know the answer to that one?
Well, I think it varies, Gary, depending on the type of use and the vehicular traffic that you'll get in those areas. The reason that we chose slurry seals in those areas is because they're very, very low volume cul-de-sacs. So I think that we're on like a 8 to 10 year rotation on our general slurry seal program that we fund through the gas tax portion of our funding, and we rotate by ward. So certainly I think that in that range is what we could expect to see similarly on these that we just covered in slurry this year.
The reason I mention that is that my experience, this life cycle of slurry seals is a whole lot different than the life cycle of overlays. And
Sure.
so that's why I was surprised to see slurry seals being used. So anyway, I'll go ahead and let somebody else talk. I'll get a couple other questions later.
Okay, and just to follow up on that piece. So we were very intentional in choosing the slurry seals, and that those were not specifically called out in the bond, but those were ones that we were going by in the neighborhood. So we identified those for those reasons. Very, very low traffic. In that area, we see the most deterioration typically just because of age of the pavement, not because of wear from the traffic. So providing that new seal to it can rejuvenate and extend the life of those small cul-de-sacs. So that's why we made the choice in those specific areas.
Thank you.
So I just want to clarify, Katie, we did not
Sure.
use bond funds to pay for slurry seals.
Yes.
This was an opportunistic thing that we were doing a bond project, and we went by some streets that a slurry seal would be the correct technique, and we used other city funds to pay for the slurry seals.
Thank you for adding that. Yes. So Matt, I think you're next, and then we had Jim and Sue.
I just have a couple quick comments. I know this is probably not in our purview, but I thought I'd make them as kind of feedback, just like Janine did in a way. So the first I'll make is just a real generalized experience, and something that I've seen a lot is the bump outs that you've put on 19th and on Fairmount are such that when you turn, you're turning into the lane of traffic. You can't avoid the bump out and not be in the oncoming traffic. So I think that there needs to be some signage or something just to let people know to be very careful. It's really difficult to navigate on 19th and Fairmount there, about Moss, Villard, Walnut, those streets, I think, is where they're at. The other is just the new configuration of Willamette Street. Is there any way that people, that the city can put additional signage that makes people aware that it's now two-way and traffic's coming both ways? Because I've seen several near accidents there at 19th and 18th. And then on 24th Willamette, 24th heading west has shifted from 2 lanes, 1 lane going to the right and 1 lane going straight, to 1 lane going left and 1 lane going straight. And so when you drive up to that, I was run off the road by someone that was in the left turn only lane, and she went straight, and I was in the straight lane. So that's another place where I think the city should put some additional marking or something just to let people know that traffic flow has changed there. It's gonna, I'm sure we're gonna see accidents, but maybe it just takes a while for people to get used to the new experience. But maybe if we could head it off, it might be a good idea. Other than that, everything's flowing pretty nice. I like Willamette the way it is, except like what Janine said, there's some weird little things with the bikes.
Thanks for all of that, Matt. Okay, who was up next? Let's see. Sue and then Jim.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as one bicyclist, I think the little things on Willamette Street, I think they work okay. I haven't seen too many people, staying straight in the road and avoiding them. I haven't been there at night, and I'm a little concerned that it might be hard to see that you're supposed to go up on those ramps at night, especially if there's leaves down and stuff. Because you are kind of stuck out in the middle of the lane if you don't take the ramp and the intended bikeway. Otherwise, I think they work okay. I'll have to admit that I don't actually ride there very often, because 9 times out of 10 when I'm riding there, I'm going to the Safeway, which is 1 block over. So I still go around over to Oak Street, where they've just taken away my bike lane, which I mean, it's low traffic. It's not a big deal, but it does seem like that Safeway is a major destination for that little section of town. So it does seem a little weird to have taken away that bike lane, but otherwise I think it works okay. And I kind of like the fact that the city is trying things. I think we used to do that a little more and try things that were unorthodox, or that other cities, people from other cities would come and say, oh my God, you got bike lanes on the left-hand side of the road or what's that? Yeah, and they actually work pretty well. So I'm kind of glad to see us trying stuff.
Thank you, Sue. Jim, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to express the satisfaction with the West Bank bike path for the River Road folks. Everybody loves it. I haven't heard a single negative comment about it. The surface in the, you got rid of all those root heaves and all that sort of thing that used to be along in there. And then the addition of the lighting there has just been really great for folks and security at night and wintertime and all that. So I know myself and all my neighbors just are really thought that was a great project. It was done really efficiently with the light, keeping the path open while they were doing lighting and that sort of thing. And there was a minimal shutdown. And the only comments was, wow, that was quick. So anyway, I just think for the controversy you endure, that's been a real positive project for you. And since I live in a foreign country in the north part of town, I have to congratulate you that you've completed Willamette Street, because that's been more than a 2-year project. I think it's been a lifetime for some of you. And so I just think that you need some congratulations for seeing that to the end, and the idea of the rain gardens and stormwater treatment and all those components that went into that, I think set a standard for our future, and it's just all positive stuff. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Jim. And Ollie.
Have to unmute. I wanted to loop back quickly to Gary's question about life cycle on the slurry seals. This question came up a number of years ago, and my recollection was that, first of all, it's really variable, but that for planning purposes, you were using something like a 5 to 7 year life cycle. So now you're saying 8 to 10. Are you using like polymer modified emulsion for the slurry seals, or what are you doing differently now from what you might have been doing? This is probably 6 or 8 years ago, I think, when this question came up.
Yeah, so Ollie, I can speak to that a little bit and say, when I said 7 to 10 in my head, I was thinking about our the cycle in which we do the work that we've, and by ward, not based on anything that we've changed specifically in the slurry. So if I was off in making that assumption, that's just me flubbing around on it.
Okay.
Not that we're not doing anything different
Nothing different
currently
in
in
terms
our
of-
slurry seal.
Okay.
Yeah, Katie, I actually think that you were right. So I think the professional literature, the engineering literature talking about slurry seals talks about a 5 to 7 year life cycle for slurry seals. Eugene, we use slurry seals in a specific technique on a specific type of street where we're going to, we have found through our experience of now doing this for many years that our slurry seals last a lot longer than that, but it's also because of the streets that we choose and the condition that they're in when we slurry seal them, that we are seeing a much longer life on our slurry seals than what the traditional engineering literature says to plan for.
So Jennifer, are you using polymer modified binder asphalt or not?
We're not. We use just the standard slurry seal mix for our slurry seal streets. It's just that we're using slurry seal as a technique on really low volume residential streets. So they're not getting a lot of wear and tear on them, but they really are just sealing up that pavement surface and preventing water intrusion, which then deteriorates the pavement for a much longer period of time than I think what the engineering literature says, because that again is just an average, and it's taking in to people using slurry seals on all sorts of roads like arterials and things like that. And so it just gets averaged down to 5 to 7 years.
Okay, thanks.
And Gary, I think we're now ready to loop back to you, and then John is after Gary.
Okay, yeah, I second Jim's comments on the west bike path, west side. I don't ride a bike on it, but I walk on it, and it is great. It is fantastic. The other thing that I continued to notice as she was going through all the projects is the ability for you folks to coordinate with other fund sources to be more efficient in your construction costs by including your stormwater and some of your electrical and your sidewalks and that type of stuff, along with the bond funds to maximize the opportunity that's presented. And I really encourage you to continue to do that, because I think that's probably hard to tell how much you actually save by doing that, but it's significant. And I applaud you for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. John, you're up.
John, you're muted.
I was just wondering, is there somewhere on the city website that shows a schedule of the slurry seal streets?
That's a great question, John. I'm not sure that there is, but I'll have to do some digging on that, and I can get back to you.
And as far as the West Bank path, I rode it both before and after the improvements. And I didn't really find the pavement particularly badly deteriorated prior to its complete redo. And I would just want to make sure that paths like that are maintained to the same standard or meet the same criteria for getting an overlay or a redo or something of that nature. Because otherwise, I think we might be spending money in somewhere that is really not absolutely necessary. And I have to look out for taxpayer funds and so forth and see whether that was really a substantial value in the improvement for what we got.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for expressing that, John. We appreciate your feedback. So seeing no other questions, Rachel, I'd propose that you continue now towards talking about the 2022. Does that work?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, let me get back to there.
Okay, so we just have a few projects that we're going to highlight because next year we have more than 20 streets that will be in construction. So we just want to give you a few highlights of what to look forward to next year. It will be a busy year. I think just in general, we do have some projects that are happening in downtown, but we were trying to be conscious of the 22 track and field events that are going to be happening in July of 22. So we also are highlighting a number of projects in West Eugene and just trying to balance the impact that will be happening in downtown next year. So to start off with, we have 4th Avenue Paving and Bikeway. And this project actually was one of a few projects that have already advertised and is in the process of being awarded. This project is 4th Avenue between Pearl Street and Coburg Road. And this is in conjunction, also has some coordination with the Riverfront Development project down at Mill Street and High Street. So I think this will be a really great connection to have done before the 22 events. This project also is including a 2-way protected bikeway, which looking at this photo, it's essentially from where the bike path connects to 4th Avenue down to Mill Street. So where the existing eastbound bike lane is, that will be converted to a 2-way protected bike lane. So there'll be a curb separator between the vehicle traffic. For anyone who has used this on a bicycle going westbound, it's really tricky to get over into the westbound bike lane and a little scary during rush hour. So I think this will be a really great improvement for this project. And so this project is hoping to start construction in the spring, which I think will be a great start to the construction season. And this also includes repaving a couple blocks of Mill Street between 2nd and 4th Avenue. And then 8th Avenue is going to be a big project for 22. This is kind of has some similarities with the Willamette Street project in that it will be spanned over 2 years. This project is going to span from Lincoln Street to Mill Street using bond funds for repaving. And we also have federal grant funds to do a number of other improvements, which include converting this section between Lincoln and Mill to a 2-way street, adding protected bike lanes on both sides of the street. And we'll be doing new signals at the existing signalized intersections, including bike signals. We will be removing bike signals at Lincoln Street, Willamette Street, and Olive Street, and converting those into all-way stops. This also includes a big coordination effort at the park blocks in coordination with the Farmers Market Pavilion project that will turn between West Park and East Park will be a curbless concrete intersection. So it'll be a really nice like plaza feel in that area. And that's where we're going to be starting construction in 22 is at the park blocks. So we can try to reopen that in time for the 22 events. And then we will continue construction down the east side of 8th Avenue. And then 2023 will focus on the west half of 8th Avenue and constructing rain gardens on side streets. And Coburg Road is going to be another big project for next year. We're going to be doing an overlay between Oakway Road to Ferry Street Bridge. As you can see on the pavements, has some pretty good deterioration. So I think this will be a really good improvement for next year. And then the last thing I wanted to focus is we're doing a number of local street clusters in West Eugene. So we'll be repaving multiple streets in that area, just again, trying to focus construction away from downtown. And that's all I have right now for 22. And we'll have a lot more information next year. And we look forward to giving you more information on the 2021 projects and our upcoming meetings. Does anyone have any questions for either 2021 or 22? Let's start with John.
Need to take my hand down, sorry.
No problem. Let's go Janine, then Jim.
Yeah, just curious on the 4th and Mill, which of course desperately needs a lot of work. Are you concerned, or are there mitigations to keep all the new construction that still has to happen from beating up your brand new street?
So in terms of the infrastructure, the new infrastructure on the street itself, part of the reason why the timing of the project is where it is now is because we have waited until the new curbs and the new ramps and that the new development, or in terms of just the